success as entrepreneurs by thinking about what our situation is, doing a diagnosis, analyzing the problems, learning business skills, mindset skills, personal development, learning how to work on the business. And when we see these opportunities because we have issues, we take them. And then we wonder why it doesn't work. And this is what I've wondered my whole life. Why is somebody like me who has just the natural inclination to improve myself all of the time feel often that I'm not satisfied with what I have? I don't feel a sense of freedom, or I am not satisfied with the results as they are. That's a life condition. And I lived most of my self-employment life in that condition until I figured out a better way. And I'm going to get into what that better way is, and I'm going to give you some examples and some things you can do right away to change that inner state feeling that there's something better around the horizon. And the pain in life and as an entrepreneur comes from this feeling of needing to get that better condition outside of ourselves through improving our ability to think more clearly, be more productive, learn business skills, learn sales skills, learn marketing skills, all of those things. And whenever I started there, it failed. I improved, yes. I saw incremental improvement and often better results. There's no question about that it is possible. But because I forced through willpower those results, the feeling inside remained one of dissatisfaction. And when I realized why this approach doesn't work, and that what I was taught through really just kind of absorbing the conventional wisdom about entrepreneurship in the society was it didn't work for me. And something had to change. Because what I realized, it didn't matter how much success I got. I just wanted something different. And the something different was sometimes just seeking more answers. I just wanted more answers. What is the best path forward? What are the best practices? How do things work? I wanted that. And I thought, if I just read enough books, eventually, if I do enough personal development, if I do enough to work on my business, I'm going to get there. It's never worked. It's never worked throughout human history. That's not how it works. I had to learn that myself through my own experience. Often, I felt a sense of triumph or victory or excitement, connection, satisfaction in a way, not satisfaction, anything except satisfaction when I got the result I wanted. So I got on top of whatever mountain I was climbing through effort and force of will and persistence. And I got to the top of the mountain and I felt the victory. I felt, wow, I did it. I can't believe I did this. Now I got the money I want. I got the life I want. It's amazing. I got the business I want. I love it. And then something would happen. And I realized that I had to do it again because this is what entrepreneurship is like. The challenges keep coming. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can't live like this anymore. So what got me to that success would not get me to the next success. This was a big revelation for me and led me to changing everything. Or what would often happen was I would be faced with a inflection point where I just knew something's got to change. Something's got to change. And then I would look for a solution. I'd look for a best practice, an expert, something to work on. And I would have this inner realization without knowing what was happening. Now I understand and know how to manage this and make it happen like quickly for myself. That it wasn't about learning or doing or finding. Now the action matters. We have to have willpower. We have to be persistent. We have to get the results that we want. It's how we do it that's the problem. There's a moment where what we've been doing will stop working always. Again, this is how it's always been. And I'm going to explain why. And I'm going to give you some concrete examples of this from my own experience and how I work through it. And then I'm going to talk about some things you can do right away to start changing your approach and stop working on your mindset so hard and stop working on your business all the time. It's not necessary. If you want incremental and small improvements, it's helpful. There's no question about it. And building these skills is important because it will prepare the condition to do what I'm about to describe. What matters is when do you do it? When do you do it? When you want a leap, when you want an exponential leap, when you want a quantum change in your life experience, doing the things that I just described in the way that I used to do them, in the way maybe you're doing them, working on yourself, trying to find things, getting answers and all this is never going to work. Never going to work. Why is it like this? I'll explain that after I give you some examples, because some of this philosophical stuff can be confusing. So I want to ground it in some concrete reality. I bootstrapped a business a few years ago that ended up succeeding. It was a lead generation company at the beginning, and it became a sales outsourcing company. And I have turned that over to somebody to run so I can take passive income, so I can focus on red pill pathway and really doing what I want to do. And a lot of entrepreneurs are like this. So we get to the point where it's like, I did it. Now I got to figure out how do I extricate myself from it so I can do something else. And that's what happened to me. So in the early days of this, I was a couple years in, I got into kind of a stable, low seven figures, and felt overwhelmed, to say the least, by this business. So how did I succeed? I succeeded through effort. I forced the success with my willpower and persistence. And I learned how to get people to say yes. I learned how to market and sell this business. And I succeeded. And it was fine. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. And I remember a moment where I thought, I am drowning in these operations. So I'm reading all of this stuff about, how do you build a scalable structure? How do you hire people? How do you work on and not in the business? And I'm reading all this stuff, and it just felt like this is going to be worse to figure all that out than where I am. But it was helpful because I did learn a lot. And as part of that process, I hired somebody. And then I had to figure out, what do I do with this person? Because I didn't have the money to pay somebody $250,000 a year to be a COO with bonuses on top. It was not going to happen. So I hired somebody for a few grand a month. that was young and inexperienced, but appeared to be talented. There's just a feeling like I didn't follow any best hiring practices. And I've learned not to do that now. They're not necessary. I had a little feeling that this individual was the right person, and he had the same feeling. We didn't discuss it. Now I look back, I understand what was actually happening, and I know how to replicate that. So I don't need the best practices. So he starts, and we're a week in, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I'm sitting there sorting through all this stuff I learned in my mind, trying to figure out, what do I tell this guy? How do I get him organized? He's the one who's good at organizing. And I'm supposed to figure out how to get him organized. That's insane. How am I going to do that? So I'm delegating responsibility to organize and run my entire business to someone who doesn't know how to do it. And I'm in the position where I have to figure out how to do that. Now, if I'd hired somebody to help me figure out how to do that, it wouldn't have worked. And what happened wouldn't have happened. We had a meeting. My business was, I worked out of LaSalle Street in downtown Chicago at the time in a place called The Grind, which is kind of like WeWork. Early days of, high quality co-working. So it was pretty cool space. It was awesome. So I bought him a membership. So he's in Chicago. So we meet downtown. I got my big plan, and I'm ready to present my plan to him. Here's how you, who knows how to do something I don't know how to do naturally, but as if you breathe it, which is something that just kills me to have to even figure it out, of how to organize a business and all the processes and the whole thing. I'm going to tell you what I need. Now I'm going to tell you what I need. So I had my whole plan. I wrote it all out, and, I looked at some books and, how do I do this and the best practices and everything. And I worked on it, and it's exhausting, but I did it. It was kind of fun because I learned something new. So I sit down with him and I showed it to him, and he wasn't paying attention. And he said, well, let me show you something. He'd been there a week. He presented me with a spreadsheet. In 1 week, he had organized the entire business, all the processes, all the systems, and what all the people needed to be doing. And I looked at it and I thought, I'm done. I don't have to do this anymore. And the feeling of freedom and satisfaction and happiness at that moment is indescribable. That is called an exponential leap. When you have an inner exponential leap in experience, it reflects itself automatically on the outside. How did this happen? I didn't know at the time. Now I know. I look back. This theme has repeated itself throughout my entire life. The problem has been all the suffering, self-inflicted suffering in between, with me trying to take control of everything and figure it all out, learning things. I'm not saying that's not important. I'm just saying it doesn't really matter. It's helpful. That's it. I'm not saying don't learn. I'm not saying don't read books about business. I do all the time. Well, I don't anymore, but I needed them, before, years ago. If I was starting it over, I wouldn't read any of them. I do what I do now. But I couldn't. So if you can't, because you don't know how yet, you got to do some things with force. In other words, I'm in charge and I'm going to figure it out. I don't figure it out anymore. And I didn't in that moment. And that's what led to the exponential leap. So how did it happen? What really happened? I was exhausted. I got everything that I wanted. I got the 7-figure business that I had been trying to figure out how to build for a few years. I was able to buy a really nice house that I still live in with massive equity down and put a ton of money in retirement throughout those few years. And I had time. I had a lot of freedom, but I was sucked into the exhausting processes in the business, which overwhelmed me because I'm terrible at it. I caught up. I was able to do it. I still had time. I wasn't working 80 hours a week, but I was working a lot. But a lot of the clients weren't happy because it was chaotic confusion. The people who worked in the company were exhausted by me. I'm sending them over here, and then I change my mind. I see a new idea, and I send them over here, and then I send them over there. And they're like, where are we supposed to go? I was like, well, keep up. It doesn't work like that. So what was the condition that set up the success and the leap? It's a leap. It's not incremental progress. It's massive change. When you change yourself inside, I'm not talking about working on yourself or personal development. I'm talking about inner experience shifts. It's totally different. Totally different. What led to the inner experience shift? Exhaustion. The feeling that staying motivated or getting motivated again to learn this new thing and do this new thing and take this thing to the next stage on my back was not going to work. It was not going to work. And inside, I had a moment of giving up. I did. I gave up. I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I had fantasies of figuring it out. So I was like, if I just figure it out, I'll have the freedom I want. And that doesn't work at all. But that was the tension inside me. It was this inner tension of, if I can just figure out how to do this. But I couldn't because I'm not good at that kind of stuff. So I hired somebody who is good at that kind of stuff. That's all I needed to know. I didn't need to know any special hiring questions or best practice. I just needed to know, oh, this is somebody who's good at this. They want to do it. They'll figure it out. I don't have to do anything. That was the catalyst of going into that meeting exhausted, recognizing I was not going to get motivated again to be able to do this, and just giving up. The minute that happened, the result came. Why? Because this is how it works. Everything we were taught is wrong. We think in this society that we have to make it happen. This is confusing because it sounds like we don't have to do any work when we say that, like we just somehow manifest money in our bank account. That's nonsense. Of course, it doesn't work like that. It's never worked like that. It never will. What I'm saying is the process of exponential leap as a lifestyle, as an entrepreneur, is fun. When you recognize how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, it's not fun because you're taking control all the time and trying to figure everything out. I just need another program. It's not going to work. It will work to help you learn something and get a little bit better. And yes, of course, you need to build and learn these skills. There's no question about that. But there will be a moment where it will not get you to the next thing that you want. And that's what I hadn't figured out. So I had another experience earlier, and this I'll do a shorter story, and then I'm going to give you something you can do right away to start to move towards this lifestyle that I now have, where all that matters to me is my inner experience. And as I expand my inner experience, wisdom comes inside me, and I know exactly what to do at all times. And I know whatever I'm doing will work to get me what I need to get the result I want, even if it doesn't come immediately, because the result may be learning something from experience that I needed to get it out of the way. And I'll be telling more stories about that. But so I'm running a family business that I helped build up, and we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well. And, I was kind of wondering about a client, and I was worrying a lot about it. So I thought, this is a lot of our revenue. I don't know, it was 20%. I don't remember, but I was like, they're not really happy with me. They liked the way it was before, and they didn't like the changes I was making. And I was heard a lot of whining and complaining about it. And I thought, I got to make these people happy because it's a lot of the income. And I didn't like them. And I really didn't like them. They were making me miserable. But the money was first. So I was like, well, I got to make that. And then I had a top salesperson who loved them, felt connected to them, and was there primarily because of the commission from that business. And she liked it. And she got to go to their national sales meetings and the whole thing. And I went and I was like, this is awful. She loved these people. I couldn't stand them. But I needed her, and I thought I did. And I needed them. I thought I did. So I remember the moment they fired me. And then she quit. And it's late at night, and I'm sitting in the office wondering, what am I going to do? And I have this mess in front of me, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I solve the legal? I did a LinkedIn post on this yesterday. How do I solve the legal issue to make sure I get paid? How do I solve the sales problem? What do I do with the staff? How do I find another person? Is there somebody who's already there I can promote? Again, best practices and all this stuff that you don't really need. And all of a sudden, it was the same thing as the other story. I had this feeling of that struggle to build that business over the last couple of years was great, but I didn't want to do it again. I wanted a whole structure, so I didn't have to do that stuff anymore. So I thought of life as the external condition, that working with customers and having to do all that was the problem. It wasn't the problem. The problem was inside me. It was my idea of what it's like to take on a big challenge. So what got me where I was struggle. What happened? I sat there and I gave up, and I thought, I can't do this. It's hard for an entrepreneur because we're like, we can do anything. So I fought with myself. It's like, I want to keep struggling. And I had this feeling, I can't. I want to keep struggling. I can't. This is going on inside myself. I thought, well, I have to. I got to make that money back. I got to get the legal thing. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. This is the problem. When you're living this way, you're fighting yourself. This is not how life really works. This is what we're taught. It's wrong. It's wrong. I know that from my own experience. So what happened? Motivation came right after I gave up, automatically. The minute I gave up, and I'm sitting in this office, I got a trade show the next day. I didn't know the financials well enough without that business. Were there other implications? What else was she working on that I didn't know about? Were there relationships that I would lose beyond her because she had the relationship and there was other income tied to it with other product lines we had? I didn't know. I didn't figure out any of that stuff because it didn't matter. I thought it mattered. What worked was that I realized I can't struggle with this anymore. The minute that happened, that's an inner experience shift. Now I know how to do that, and I do it immediately. This is how I live my life every day. The inner experience shift led to motivation. Why? Because I freed up energy that filled with motivation and wisdom. Why? Because that's how it works. It's always worked this way. It always has. It does now, and it always will. Every wisdom tradition I have ever learned about or experienced directly through following those practices leads to exactly this place. When this becomes your lifestyle, as opposed to a lucky incident because you don't know what's going on, but you feel like, something's missing. I can't figure this out. And you give up. And then it just happens and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you go back to how you were. But you aren't the same. You've shifted inside. You just don't know what's going on because we don't realize we're in charge of this. We're in charge of everything. We create the reality we want. Success is inevitable. When you live this way, it is inevitable. The clarity, confidence, and certainty about success with necessary doubt. The doubt is there to help protect you against yourself of believing that somehow with success being inevitable, I'm always going to do the right thing. So I did a lot of the wrong things for about a month, which ended about 2 weeks ago, I think. And what that got me was a significant expansion of my interstate experience, which is leading now to really big results in a different way because I shifted again inside automatically. It happens automatically. So facilitating your ability to do that inside yourself is what will change your life. The output of this for an entrepreneur is an exponential leap in what you get. In other words, the external results that come to you when you shift yourself so dramatically inside without doing any work. You don't have to work on yourself. You do not have to work on your business at all. You have to allow your inner experience to evolve without resisting it. Why do we suffer? Because we resist the change. We want to hold on to our beliefs. We want to hold on to the burdens that we created from those beliefs. We do not want to examine that. Why? Because we don't understand how it works. For me, it may be different for you. So that's kind of an extreme statement. But anyways, knowing inside through experience how to do that makes the pain of whatever I have to do to get rid of the belief, to examine the belief, see how it's connected to the burden that I've created inside myself, release the burden. All of a sudden, everything changes and it happens immediately. I start getting what I want without doing the kinds of things that worked in the past, which were necessary at the time because I've changed. So now it's something else. And this never ends. This is the life condition and how life really works. And what happened as I went through all of this is I realized the biggest reason we don't do this in this society is because it's too easy. We like complicated, we like effort, we like hard, we like special, we like being recognized, validated for our brilliance and what we've figured out. And none of that is really particularly necessary or helpful, but we don't want to give it up. So this is what it fundamentally is all about, is when you're not ready to give up your belief systems, when you're not ready to examine your burdens, examine your belief systems and experience your burdens, if you're not willing to do that, you will feel stuck. You may not always know it. I did not always know it, but there was an inner stuck. So the inner stuck led to force. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. Doing things that used to work that would no longer work because life had changed and I had a bigger opportunity that was waiting for me. That call to adventure had come and it said, wake up. Something bigger is waiting right around the horizon, much better than anything you have right now. And if you decide, I want this, and I'm going to make this happen, you're going to push it away from you. When you adopt this kind of a lifestyle, you will get everything that you want, not in the way you want it, but you will get it as success is inevitable.